Hi everyone, I'm Donna Stellhorn, your practical astrologer, and today we are talking about the lunar eclipse in Gemini on November 30th, 2020. So we've talked about eclipses before on this channel. Eclipses bring change, and when we do a lunar eclipse, what happens is that the Earth is in the center, and so it's an opposition point of Sun and Moon, and with the Earth in the center, and so the Earth is blocking the light of the Sun to the Moon, and so the Moon can turn to blood red. And so what this indicates is that if we look at the sun as being our sense of self, our, what we want to accomplish, what we're growing into, and our moon as our needs, what's going to make us happy and fulfilled and make us feel safe and secure. And then the earth is in the center, and so the earth is in the way, and that is everything that's practical. That is, doing your filing or getting to work or finding a job or dealing with your partner or things like that. So the things of the earth and the things that may be more mundane or even out of our control, like things that are like political or dealing with countries or things like that, those things become so big that they are in the way between what we want to accomplish and what we need to make ourselves feel safe. And so that's the overall what a lunar eclipse is, and this specific lunar eclipse is in Gemini, and Gemini is about communication. So it is about how we speak to others, how we collect information, but also how we speak to ourselves. So with those three things, we know that most of the news right now is about, how people have been receiving their information, how they are making their decisions, who is talking to each other and who is not talking to each other. So we're definitely in a Gemini sort of eclipse energy. And during this eclipse time, miscommunications are very possible. Now, the interesting thing about eclipses is that when you are sensitive and aware of the energies, when you're listening to the melody that the universe makes, then you can, even a week or two before, start to feel the changes coming from the eclipse. And so you may already be experiencing some of the miscommunications, some of those ideas where you need to communicate more with yourself and communicate differently with yourself. Perhaps you are too hard on yourself and you are finding that you can't get things done, or maybe you're not looking at what you're saying to yourself, but it's that your life is so filled with other people's voices and other people's words that there's not even time for you to process. And so there's all of these different elements coming together with a theme of communication or miscommunication. Now, then additionally, what we look at is where this eclipse is going to fall in your chart. So as we go around the wheel, I'm going to be talking about things from the terms of a sun sign. But if you have your rising sign is the sign I'm mentioning, that's certainly going to be something to listen to. So listen to your sun sign, your rising sign, and you can listen to your moon sign also and kind of do an amalgamation of those three things, because that's going to tell you all the areas of your life where this could hit. Now, with eclipses in general, yes, they bring change. Yes, they bring discomfort. But the universally what happens is a few months down the road, you look back at this time and say, I am so happy I went through that and made the decisions that I made. Even though this is kind of a hard climb, or you are feeling like people aren't understanding you and you're frustrated, or you're being really hard on yourself, you're going through something now which is necessary for that happiness later. For myself, I have been really obsessed over the last few weeks about decision making and listening to a lot of different experts on how people make decisions. And one of my favorites right now is Annie Duke, who just wrote a book called How to Decide, which is something that I really like the framework that she does around it. I really want to kind of write it out and see how I can apply all the steps. But one of the key principles of that book was in decision making to recognize that just because an outcome did not come out well doesn't mean it was a poor decision. So sometimes we make very good decisions, but as luck would have it, the outcome wasn't great. But it's also the same can be true, in the opposite sense, which is sometimes we make a really poor decision and as luck would have it, it works out okay. So what I think is important is to make good decisions and find ways for us to make good decisions. And that's why I study astrology, and hopefully why you do too, so that we can make better decisions and look at the things that might be outside of our control and say, all right, I can release this part of it because I know that the parts that are in my control I can deal with. So as we go around the wheel, we're going to be talking about that, about where communication is happening, where miscommunication is happening, and where you may need to be making some decisions. So for Aries natives, you're doing the eclipse in the third house, and that actually rules communication. It also rules siblings, transportation, your neighbors, contracts, agreements, written word, education, all those types of things. And those are the areas where we would expect some communication or miscommunication to happen. But more importantly, you're looking at making decisions about people and situations in these areas. So it may be that you are having some communication with a neighbor, or maybe you are having an argument with a sibling. Maybe you're looking at your transportation. Maybe you're deciding to buy a new car. Maybe you're considering not having a car anymore since we don't seem to be going anywhere. You could also be looking at contracts and agreements, maybe ones you're receiving, maybe ones you're putting out there. These are some of the things that you're going to be dealing with over the next couple of weeks. And then if you work at it, you will feel better about. So Taurus natives, you guys are doing this eclipse in your second house of money. That is how you communicate about money. Are there miscommunications about money? And what are the decisions you need to be making about your finances? So you might realize that you need a written budget, that you maybe don't really follow the budget that you have, or maybe you just think that you need to be paying more attention to your money. You could also be having discussions with partners or family partners, like you have many, a partner or your family members about money in general. And then maybe you need to make some decisions about what you're buying, why you buy things, what are the impulses that you have around buying. Maybe look at where money is flowing out and plug up some of those holes, to really consider your money on all of the levels where there's communication involved. All right, Gemini natives, you guys are doing this eclipse like full on. It is your eclipse. And so there is definitely more potential for big change happening in your life. That could mean moving or a job change or a relationship change, because this is you feeling emotionally blocked, like you're not getting what you need, maybe feeling unsafe or insecure in some way. And so you're going to take more action to get what you need. And that's the correct thing to do. Now, you of course, being Gemini, you're quick thinking, you're smart, you're calculating things all the time. But sometimes you can get distracted because you're collecting so much information that maybe you don't come down to actually making the decision. And so this is you asking yourself quality questions, not a question of like, why does this always happen to me, but more of a question, is this relationship good for both of us going forward? Or, do I really like my job? Is my company stable? Is the industry going through changes? The quality of the questions is going to give you quality answers. And so if you will focus on, like, how can you make your questions better, then you're going to get better information. And that's what this eclipse is about for you. For Cancer natives, this eclipse is in your 12th house of spirituality and intuition. And so the communication that we're talking about here is not just with you, but it's with the bigger world and the universe. So we can start with the biggest, and that would be the universe itself. And that is, how are you communicating through prayer or visualization or affirmations or things like that? Are you doing those sort of things, or are you so caught up in just the noise in the background that you don't have that one-on-one communication with the universe that you could be having? Now, also, it is about miscommunications, and so this can be maybe you are just really focused on fearful thoughts or caught up in ideas that don't seem to be helping you, don't bring you additional information, or it's when we think about some of the like conspiracy theories that are so popular right now, and people are always telling me, what do you think about this? Well, if it's something that I can't change and it's something where I'm not going to be able to find out the truth about it, how is that interesting? How does that help my life? So it's the same thing here. If you can't affect change in the bigger world, bring it down to what you do have power over, and that is, your choices throughout the day, how you treat other people, what kind of person you are in your community. These are the things that can ripple out and change the world. So that's where we should be putting our focus. Now, also, this is about decisions, and it's possible, Cancer natives, that you have been weighing some decisions and maybe you're not even sleeping because of it, and perhaps you do need to maybe use some sort of framework like one of these decision experts suggests, so that you can break things down and really figure out which way you should go. So, and again, as I said before, this is where astrology comes in. Astrology is a GPS map that can say, up ahead, there's going to be traffic. You may want to take a different route, or, hey, there's smooth sailing up ahead. So why don't you really lean into this, because you have this much time before traffic comes again. For Leo natives, you guys are doing the eclipse in your 11th house. That's friendships as well as technology. It also rules the future. And so what we're looking at is communication first with friends. And so, are you talking to your friends on a regular basis now that it's even getting harder for us to be together? It's more important than ever to reach out to friends, especially those more introverted friends who can bury themselves in their homes for long periods of time. So reach out and connect to them, but being mindful that there can be some miscommunications. And so you have to be aware of what you're saying and how it might come across. Now, additionally, 11th house does real groups and organizations, and so perhaps you're part of a group and maybe you're now meeting online, or maybe you are looking for a group and you want to connect more. This is a good time with that eclipse energy to do that. And then we have technology, which has its own set of communication issues with it. If you're a person who feels that you just don't gel with technology, that you don't connect with it, well, first I would say you're probably not watching this channel because you would be reading a book somewhere. But let's say you just feel like a spectator. And this is really about stopping long enough to have that conversation with the computer. Like you say to it, this is what I want to know how to do. And in the magic of Google, it will answer you and say, this is how you do it, because there's all of these incredibly generous people in the world who have put instruction videos, blogs, podcasts, all of this to help you figure out any aspect of the computer at all. We live in this amazing age where there's so much knowledge that is available basically for free. Now, the decisions that you're making here are mostly about your future and looking to say, well, where do you want to go? I mean, now that the world has changed so much, how does what you've done in the past going to fit in? And if it doesn't, how are you going to change it? So Virgo natives, you are doing the eclipse right at the top of your chart in the area of career and reputation. And so where you may be struggling is maybe you don't like your job and you want a new one, but in this time of, kind of strange changes and, employment issues and things like that, maybe you are concerned about whether you're going to get another job. Maybe you want to be completely out of your industry. And I think that with a lunar eclipse, you want to take the baby steps to do something, but wait for the solar eclipse in Gemini to make huge changes, and that's not going to be for a little bit yet. So this would be, updating your resume or starting to connect with people on LinkedIn or colleagues who've moved on to things, and also looking at your reputation. How are you presenting yourself on social media and communicating to the wider audience? Are you focused on things that are going to bring love and light to the world, or are you venting anger or things like that? And I don't mean to pass a judgment on that, but it can curtail some of your future job opportunities if you stay in an angry mode. Now, your decisions are around career most likely, and so it is, even if you feel your career is stable, even if you think the company is okay, it's still a warning sign that you should be aware of changes that can happen, because there is only so much in our control, and then everything else is outside of that control. And that is fine if you feel like you trust yourself and that you can get another job and that you're going to be okay. And so looking at, where do you feel that you're not going to be okay, and where can you shore that up? So for Libra natives, this eclipse is falling in your 9th house, and that would be education, legal matters, writing, teaching, publishing, also just your philosophy or your beliefs. So where you're going to be communicating is perhaps through writing or teaching. Maybe there's some contract information coming up or things like that, but this is more about how you're expressing yourself and being aware when there is going to potentially be this miscommunication that could cost you. So now this is also education, so it's the reports you're doing. You might be doing tests for a certification or some sort of professional license or things like that. Where you're needing to make decisions is also in this area, and this could be whether to continue with a lawsuit or whether to settle, whether to sue somebody. When it comes to education, it could be where to go to school, which school to pick, whether to continue to go to school, whether to drop out of school. If you are writing or teaching, it's less about the decision and more just to decide to get your words out there in the world, to find ways to stop procrastinating and put the information forward. So for Scorpio natives, your eclipse is falling in your 8th house. That's resources from others, passive income sources, also intimacy. And that's where you can get some serious miscommunications. But when it comes to your finances, especially investments, business income, or just looking at the agreements that you're signing for business opportunities, you want to make sure that there's no miscommunications. This is also about how you are communicating to yourself about the resources that are available. If you're saying to yourself, well, nobody's going to help me, nobody is going to give me, any sort of money or support to do what I want to do, then you're not even going to look. So you do want to be aware of how you're communicating with yourself about these things. Additionally, of course, when it comes to relationships, this is that point of intimacy. And so maybe you are wanting to take the relationship to that level. And so you're looking at how you're going to communicate that. And, that can be an awkward sort of conversation. And so that's where the miscommunication can happen. But again, the eclipse puts the pressure on and it helps us go through this so that then we can say, okay, what did I learn from that experience? Or did I do it really well? And now I know how to do it. Now, additionally, you're making some decisions, of course. And with the 8th house, what we see is that you are searching for the truth about things. So first, make sure that the truth is findable, that you are not just isolating yourself from information. We all have some implicit bias. We are all going to, kind of base our decisions and what we think about things from what's around it or what we already know or what's frequently in our lives. And so any way that you can pull yourself out of that bias is going to help you now. So looking at your decision making in general to say, where am I just absolutely, dead set on something where I'm not letting new information in. So Sagittarius natives, this is a pretty big eclipse for you, not as big as perhaps Gemini natives, but pretty big. In fact, it's the precursor to the big eclipse you're going to have in 2 weeks, which is the solar eclipse. But right now you have this eclipse in your house of relationships, and so you may see it kind of playing out in other people, but the universe is bringing you the message for a reason. And so if somebody else in your life has a job change or something like that, that could be a sign for you that you need to be looking at the stability of your own job. And this is especially true about communication because this is the Gemini eclipse. And so if somebody is either accidentally or willfully miscommunicating with you, then you need to look at how you might be doing this to others and what the results are. Maybe you think that, well, they don't know that, I'm telling a white lie or that I am, not speaking to them. Anyway, if you're realizing it from somebody else, they're realizing it in you. And so that's what this eclipse is saying. It's a warning from the universe to say, look, here's your mirror, and what is irritating in your life, you're actually doing. Now, the things that you're making decisions about are specifically relationships, because the 7th house is where we bring in all relationships. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that you're deciding about your main sweetheart, that you are really deciding whether to stay married or something like that. This could be a close friendship, a business partnership, or even just friendships in general. So the 7th house is also about balance, and maybe this is your work-life balance or some other aspect of balance in your life, but this is a time to be making decisions on this. And as you do, you're constantly weighing the different options, and as you put something heavy on one side, then the other side goes up and you have to find something heavy to put on that side. And this trying to find this point of peace is what this eclipse is about. It says that you have needs, and especially around communication, and maybe if you're in a relationship and they're not speaking to you or not speaking the way you'd like them to, you have to sit down with them and have that discussion. For Capricorn natives, this is an eclipse that's falling in your 6th house. That is work and health and routines. And so this is where the communication is happening. Now, of course, when it comes to your health, there is so much information out there, and it can be conflicting and confusing, and you may not know what source to go and get the truth from. And so there has to be some points where you are also going to go within to ask yourself what your body needs. Sometimes we we don't like the advice that we get from the professional, but it's a good idea to actually stop and say, all right, well, what if they are correct? You know, where am I fooling myself? Where am I not doing the things that deep down I know I should be doing? Now, this is also about work, and so there could be some changes at your job. Maybe you're not liking your job so much and you need to make a decision about whether you're going to stay or go. Maybe there is some miscommunication in the office and you're having some trouble with a coworker, and so all of these things need to be addressed. And of course, this is also about routines, you know, basically habits and things like that, and you know, how you schedule your time, how you go through the day, what gets done and what doesn't get done, and what you tell yourself about that. And so looking at, you know, are you supporting yourself when you are too tired to do something? Are you avoiding all of your responsibilities? I guess that's saying a lot. You're not avoiding all responsibilities. You are a Capricorn. You probably have more responsibilities than anybody. But it's more about, you know, looking at your schedule and seeing if it's a reasonable schedule. And if it is and you're not doing it, then why? Why is that? Asking yourself those quality questions. Aquarius natives, you guys are doing the eclipse in your area of risk-taking, children, fertility, romance, fun. So with that, this is where communication issues can happen, where you might be communicating a lot with your kids, or there could be some miscommunications, either between the children and you're trying to step in and help out, or you are having miscommunications between you. Now, when it comes to risk-taking, this could be not getting enough information to make a really good decision about a risky investment. You know, if you're thinking about getting into, you know, some derivative currency or something like that, you know, it might be wise to really have an understanding of this rather than just look and say, wow, this is a trend and I don't want to miss out. And so you rush in and then there's trouble. So eclipses cause us to say, you know, let's just wait for a moment, because they basically, the light of the moon goes out. It's, you know, the moon turns red and gets our attention for a reason. And so whatever you are planning to do in the area of risk-taking or romance for that matter, really consider that this is that notification to just pause for a moment and really consider what you're doing. Now, when it comes to decision making, of course, when you're looking at high risk investments, you're making decisions about that. You might be making decisions about getting into a relationship, maybe asking someone out. You may be making some decisions about your kids, about, you know, whether they can live with you any longer, or whether you are going to help them through college or something like that. Pisces natives, you guys are doing the eclipse in the 4th house. That's home, family, your foundations. And so this is where the communication and decision making is happening. And so it makes perfect sense. It's the holidays, and now you might be around family or at least doing Zoom meetings with family. And so miscommunications can happen. And this could be that, you know, you might really feel the need to have this warm, loving family and this Norman Rockwell sort of Thanksgiving, and yet it doesn't seem to happen because of some of the communication difficulties. And this is time to look and see how you can shift that energy by you shifting how you're speaking. Now, yes, it would be ideal if, you know, your Uncle Bob would shift the way he's speaking too, but you don't have any control over that. So you can only shift yourself. Now, this also could be that you're making some decisions about moving or staying where you are. I mean, now that we're all, I shouldn't say all, now that so many of us are working out of the home, we have more ability to live in, you know, a bigger world. And so there's so many considerations now about, you know, do you still want to live in a metropolitan area, or do you want to go more rural? Do you want to live in another country? And so you might be looking at these different options over the next 6 months or so. Now, this is also about your foundations, and, you know, with the miscommunication idea, this is that you might have taken some of the lessons from your childhood, things that parents said, and maybe put too much emphasis on it. Maybe, maybe it got a little convoluted in the process. And so you don't really hear, like you're affected by something your dad said to you when you were young, but that wasn't what he meant, or wasn't the circumstances really, or maybe there were extenuating circumstances. And yet this thing is guiding your life. And so this eclipse is that opportunity to say, you know what, maybe there's a different way of looking at this. And the eclipse can help that, where you decide that you're not going to be defined by, one thing that a person said to you, 20 years ago, that you are going to make your own decisions. And so with the moon in the 4th house, we also see this as the point of endings. That would be this opportunity to let go of something that has been on your in your head or on your mind for ages and ages, and now you can release it. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe and stay tuned, because Luru wants to say hi. What?